all we are expecting, or should we wait for anybody else?
I think you can go ahead if
Okay.
anybody else comes in. Yeah.
Sounds good. Hello, my name is Drew Cook. I teach here at St. Croix, like I said. I just finished 6 years last year, in my 7th year here. This is, I think, my 16th year of teaching. Yeah, 16th year of teaching. My first year out of college actually was here, back in 2006. And I lived in the old boys' dorm as a dorm supervisor. And if you ever get to go to the new dorms for any reason, they're pretty nice, and they're much nicer than the old boys' dorms. Mrs. Julian was actually here. Was it the same position that you were in way back then? Ish. Boy, that was an adventure, living in those dorms, and very thankful that we have what we have now. So I spent 1 year living in the dorms over there. Got to experience St. Croix from a multiple angles as a dorm supervisor, seeing students out of the classroom element, seeing students at 10 p.m. or sometimes 2 a.m. or whatever it might be. That lets you in on like what it's like to be a high school student a little bit, and what it's like to be a high school student who is a few thousand miles away from their home. It's a huge perspective to gain. After I did that, I went to a small town in Wisconsin, and I was there as a teacher for 8 years, and then moved back here in 2015, if my math is correct, I think. I've been in our middle school for a number of years, and then this year and last year kind of transitioning a little bit into our guidance department. So I'm one of our school's guidance counselors, and I teach a sophomore history class and a Phi Ed class this year. So it's fun stuff. This topic of high school transitions is a really cool topic. Getting not just students a little bit more acclimated and used to what it's like to be a high school student and a student here, where there's a whole new culture of things to learn, but also for you as parents. I think I know most of you, really, not all of you. And so you have some experience with a lot of this, but at the same time, things change constantly in the school setting and here, whether it's with our culture or what students are up to, or different ways that you can get involved. So the idea of this presentation is to kind of share some things about what students go through, but also at the same time share some things of what the opportunities there are for you to get involved as well. So if at any point you feel like you want to jump in and say something or ask a question, please do. Don't worry about, I even tell this to students in my classes, please don't worry about raising your hand, just say your question. Unless students have to wait till I'm done talking. But, you know, because you're more important than me. I wanted to give you this. This is a token of my appreciation for you coming here today. Maybe this is something that you've seen before. Maybe it isn't. This is kind of a little bit of psychology that we're going to do here. So what I want you to do for the next basically minute is just kind of examine this paperclip that you have in front of you and see if you can figure out, and if you have, actually there's pads of paper right there, or pencils, if you wouldn't mind passing those out. See if you can figure out how many different ways you could use this paperclip. How many different ways do you think you can use this paperclip? I'm going to give you, is 1 minute too short? I'll give you a minute, and if it feels like this is getting long, then I'll stop it. And if it feels like you're still writing a ton of things down, then we'll keep it going. Go ahead. hours. Just thinking, it was getting really warm in here. 10 more seconds. All right, then if you would please just partner up and share the ideas you have and see if you have any that are similar. And then for those that are similar, it's kind of like, oh, cool. And if there are ones that are different that maybe require any explanation, go ahead and do that. So if you could, between the two of you, choose one or two that you think that's like, we like this one the best between the two.
What extent of the liking?
Like originality or?
I know, because you have a different category of things. I like the old school one.
Yeah.
So, use it as a book.
Exactly. Our kids wouldn't know what to do with that.
No,
But they would.
but I have a radio at work that I could actually
use
use it as
for
twine.
Sundays.
You're also
They would get the
probably
reset on the router part though,
like,
yes, that they not figured out.
football or soccer. And then as a hearing. Oh yeah, you can like.
What
Right. Yeah,
good idea.
An antenna extender.
An antenna extender. Do you think
Well, that goes
14-year-olds
kids
would
would have
know
no
what an
idea what
antenna
that
is?
is.
Man, that's great. Okay, antenna extender. What do you think? What do you think was like a good idea? What'd you say?
To use it to get your SIM card out of your phone.
Okay, I think I heard that over here too.
Yeah, you did.
Um,
Had to do it more.
so
Not that I know this from experience.
this paperclip problem is like a real thing that that researchers, psychologists have actually done with people in different controlled environments. And they have studied then the responses, both like the number of responses and the variety of responses from different age levels. So they had people in this study thing that were as young as about 5 years old. And they had people in this study who were as old as, in their 50s, 60s. And everything in between. Any guess on what age group was the best? Like had the most responses and most variety of responses? Students that are in kindergarten, students that are about 5 years old, are the best at it. And it's not like a small sample size thing. Like this is something they've been studying pretty extensively. I was actually pretty impressed that, Laura, you went to a second page. That's impressive. The number of things that were written down. What they found is the younger the people were, the less standard they went with what to do with that paperclip. So most people that are in high school or beyond are going to see a paperclip, and the first thing they're going to say of what to do with it is to put two pieces of paper together. You think an average 5th grader or 5-year-old knows that that's what it's for? I don't know. I don't know if they would. And since they don't have that just, this is what it is, this is its function type of thing, their brains go all over the place, and they love to just share those ideas. The other thing that's true about kids, especially young kids, is they care way less about what people think. A 5-year-old doesn't care if other people see him or her like dancing in the parking lot or something like that. I can see this in my everyday life. And I'm sure that when you think back to when your kids were younger, you can picture them when they were 5 years old, like, they didn't care about much of anything. And now, how much has that changed? Maybe you have the type of child that it hasn't changed. But for almost all kids, once they get out of a certain age, they start to care a lot more about what people think. And things have more predetermined rules that they're aware of, and so they think a little bit differently. What I'm going to try to, I guess, encourage you to do as a parent, and also what we try to encourage your kids to do as well, is something called divergent thinking. And basically what that means is you're going to try to think different than you used to, or think of ways of the world that aren't necessarily the prescribed perfect answer way of the world. When a student comes into any school, even our school here, they're going to notice that there are apparent rules that they're supposed to follow. Some of those rules they have to, because we tell them they have to. Some of those rules just kind of show up based on what the other students seem to be doing. And when they see those rules showing up, most students will just follow it because they don't want to stick out. They don't want to be noticed as doing something that isn't like everyone else. I think this type of paperclip problem thing is just a great way to get anybody to try to be in the habit of thinking a little bit different of why we do what we do. So I want to take that now to some things that, as Ms. Biedenbender talked about this, whether it's this year or last year, we've gotten over the years a bunch of people that have kind of said, you know, now that my kid is in high school, I'm not really sure as a parent how I'm supposed to be involved and be connected to people. So I want to ask you this: what types of things were available to you, or if you still have a child in elementary school, are available to you to be involved at that level? And we'll see if what I have on my list matches up with what you might say.
General PTA.
Okay? So just parent, teacher involvement. Yep.
Library,
Okay.
Lunch supervision. Before and after school care supervision.
parties,
Like classroom parties or
after school parties,
fun parties?
Picnics.
Picnics?
field trips.
And you could probably keep going for a while. With all those things, in an elementary school setting, do you think that for most of them you were kind of asked to do that? Like say, hey, there's this opportunity to volunteer, please sign up. Or was it more about you had to search for it? What's that?
They came knocking.
Yeah. It happens a lot, right? That a school is going to ask you to be involved and volunteer and do all these sorts of things. And one of the most difficult things is, it's not like that stops once they reach the high school level, but it definitely doesn't happen as much, which I don't know from experience, but I can imagine would be a little weird. And I think is maybe one of the reasons why at times parents have said, I feel disconnected. Totally get it. Here's a list that I had, which pretty much is the same as what you had. So supervision, volunteer things, whether it's lunch, library, field trips, all those things. Sporting events at an elementary school. Vast majority of students participate in sports in the elementary school, at least in like Lutheran school circles. And so when you go to those sporting events, almost every parent is there because almost every child is there, regardless of that season. When you get to the high school level, that changes a lot. One, because sports are a little bit more competitive, Two, because there's more things for them to get involved in, so now you're in maybe different areas, depending on child's interest. Drop off and pick up sometimes can be a big social spot for parents to hang out. Usually church events play a role. If it's a school play, again, most of the kids are in the school play. If it's a concert thing or a talent night thing, like that's most of the school. It's different once you get to a bigger school. Neighborhood, that's too, like when kids are smaller, they'll go out and play with kids in their neighborhood. And again, once you get older, maybe it doesn't happen quite as much. Fewer things maybe to get involved in as they get older. So I guess here's, to kind of take this to kind of keep extending it, I guess. Some things that we definitely know, again, kind of going back to some psychology stuff, and this is for parents and this is also for students. Everybody desires meaningful involvement with other people. We actually just had that in church on Sunday at Crown of Life. Interesting. Didn't even think of that. Humans desire meaningful involvement and desire connection with other human beings. It's just a thing that we have. And so there's a couple really, really big research-supported things that I think are important for us to know. Again, parents and students. This guy, William Glasser, his name right there, he's a really, really interesting guy. Psychologist who did a lot of different work and study to figure out what is it that makes people tick and how do we try to get different types of people to be like more secure, more stable, happier, live better lives. And this guy, William Glasser, kind of developed this thing called the 5 basic needs. Now, there is a different guy who developed something called the hierarchy of needs. His name is Maslow. He's one guy. This guy is a little bit different. His needs are slightly different. Number 2 on his list is this idea of belonging. Basically, what he's saying is, after number 1, which is survival, that's your number 1 need, after surviving stuff, you can't really do anything else until you feel like you belong wherever it is you are. That's really, I think, important for us to know to help parents and to help students. Because if there's a student here who doesn't feel like he or she belongs, we can't go a whole lot further than them just surviving. And we don't want them to just survive. The same is true for you as parents. If you feel like you're just surviving and you're dropping your kid off and you have no connection, that's not good for us and for you either, nor is it good for your child. And so we want to try to do things to help make sure that you feel a sense of belonging. There is, whether your kids admit it or not, it is actually true that students want their parents to be involved. It just might be in a different way. But they do. They do. Do they want you to stand next to them at the game? Probably not. But they want you to be involved somehow. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. And this is maybe the most difficult part. And I can look ahead to myself. My child is sitting right over there, who is in 5th grade. I can start looking ahead already to, boy, that's going to be really, really weird. And it already is a little weird and difficult to try to balance letting that kid be autonomous, but still be there as the person who supports. But at the same time as you might be struggling with that, your kid is also struggling with how much do I want to be autonomous but still rely on the support that I've always had. Again, whether they admit it or not, it's there. Okay? I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it would be interesting to see all the rest of the needs. This is from that guy, William Glasser. His theory is called choice theory. So survival is the number 1. Belonging is number 2. But then I think what's really interesting is once you get past belonging, if you feel like you belong in a certain place, you move to something that's really, really powerful. I shouldn't use that, but powerful. And that is power. Like, once you feel like you belong, now you're achieving stuff, you're being skilled at stuff, and you're recognized for those achievements and for those skills. And you feel like you have a sense of self-worth. Like once you reach that second level, the third level is huge. And if you've reached that third level of feeling like there is power in what you're doing, now you have freedom, which is where some of that autonomy can come from. You're making choices, you're taking control of your own life. Now, for your child, that looks like something, and for you, that might look like something else. But if all of us are kind of getting to that point, that's going to be the healthy balance that we're looking for with that autonomy and support. Finally, what I think is really interesting about his fifth one is that it's fun. Doesn't seem like a very scientific thing. But every living thing, every living being, not a plant, but like every living thing actually does look for ways to have fun. Animals look for ways to have fun. But for humans, sometimes it seems like the older we get, the less we do that. Which again goes back to that idea of the paperclip and how our thinking really changes as we get older. So much because we think we have to follow different rules that are put in place.
So where would you go back to that? Can you go back to that
Yep.
list? Where would you filter in and through our confession of our Christian faith? Because you weigh in on power and self-worth, right? But the rest of power is more to be like recognized for our achievements and skill. So obviously love and belonging is a huge part of our Lutheran tradition, right? Which tends to gravitate people towards this school. So I was just curious how it would filter through.
Wow.
Deep question.
Yeah, that is. I mean, one of the things that we hope makes us different is that everything we do flows out of our love for Jesus. And that he wants us to love others. And so, if we personally feel a love and belonging in ourselves, then we can try as much as we can to give that to others and share Christ's love with others to make that a deeper love and belonging. So if we can get an even deeper sense of that, then, and also know that our self-worth is not rooted just in ourselves, but is rooted in somebody way bigger and better than us, then I think it makes all of these things have a lot more meaning to them and a lot more connection to them. So, I don't know, like, do you keep in touch with any of your high school friends? Yes? Yes? Wow, that's awesome. I don't think that's possible if you don't have this stuff really deep with that person in a relationship. And so, I don't know, one thing that's really cool, like when, I haven't been here that long, I've been here 6 years, but I'm at the point now where I get to see students who are either in college or graduated from college come back and talk about things. And seeing them come back and talk about those things and what meant something to them is often a reminder for me to really hit home with students that the love of Christ for them and bring that into so much of what we're doing. Because that's what hits home for them eventually.
Can I add something to that? That was a brilliant question. Thank you for asking it. And as I was thinking about that, my observation, I think the difference here is that the word power in the world is very different than the word knowing where your power comes from and recognizing that there is a set of rules that God expects us to live by. So I could be the valedictorian of a school where I cheated the entire time, and I would get all of those things on number 3 from a worldly perspective and would fail miserably here, even if I didn't get caught. And so I think we have that going on in football right now where what I love is the way that our coaches teach these guys, yeah, that's what that team did, but that's not what we do. Mm-hmm. And
in that sense, if you're doing it the wrong way, you're not really achieving anything. And you're not showing competence or skill in anything. So you haven't really gotten to that point even. So your definition of basically saying, you know, a worldly view of power, like that, yeah, that's not even real.
A worldly view of power is fleeting.
Right.
Because you can get that status. That status is incredibly hard to maintain and to keep in the exact
Yeah.
same position. But we already have that through Christ. And so that's pretty powerful, like you had said. So.
It's awesome.
And lasting.
Right, exactly.
And
Yeah,
lasting.
it's not fleeting. Yeah.
One thing that I heard, I don't know I forget, there was a student who said this. You know what? It was a graduate who said it. I was talking to somebody who graduated last year, talking to him over the summer, and he basically was kind of thinking back over his time, and he thought, you know, one of the coolest things was how when he was a freshman, he didn't feel like the seniors were like over him, making him feel awful. And when he became a senior, he's like, well, this is what we do. We don't look for the little people and try to do something to them. We try to do what we can to bring them in. And this graduate had a really cool perspective with it, because he then made a connection to that's something that shows our faith. Again, that's how you can make some of those connections with all of this. If your child is a freshman, that can be really hard to do still, because juniors and seniors are typically bigger, and you know, it still is intimidating, but at the same time, our hope is that intimidation fades quicker because of the reason why, you know, we're here in the first place. So really appreciate that. That's
I
awesome.
think our kids are just like, morals are being taught in the classroom on top of what we can do at home, and words echo much stronger from their teachers and from upperclassmen than they do mom or dad, because they're not mom or dad. So one of the biggest struggles that I had, especially with Gavin, was, I mean, we have 6 kids, so the financial aspect of private versus public was heavy on us, and COVID was a huge contributing factor as to like the final straw. There was no way I could go back public, but Gavin's one of those kids where he would have just got lost in the cracks in the public sector, because he's not the overachiever, but he's not the I need help kid. And I can guarantee he wouldn't have a single high school teacher that knew his name had we sent him to Egan. Like, you go to a class of 600 versus 88. I'm like, but like, they're now able to build these relationships with you guys as teachers, and you all know them. Like, they don't have that ability to get lost in the cracks here, and that's a huge thing.
And one thing that we try to remember, and we have a couple of people in our administration and just on our faculty who remind us of this in a great way, like not in a scolding way, but we were introduced to a term by Dr. Rachi a couple of years ago called illusory superiority. And all of us were like, basically, you can't convince yourself that you're better than you actually are. And if you think you're great, then you've now lost your greatness. So we don't ever want to feel like, you know, we're better than there, or we're better than there, we're better than somebody else. We want to do what we do because of what God's done for us, and see every kid in that way. Does that mean that kids don't ever slip through the cracks here? No, sometimes they do.
Right.
But if we can do a better job of
There's so many people like helping to try and prevent that here versus,
we hope so.
unfortunately, public school teachers have it completely taken out of their ability even right now with the struggles that they have to deal with, that I don't envy on any of them. But
Yeah.
like you were saying too, like with the whole upperclassmen, lowerclassmen division, I don't even feel like there is one per se. Like Gavin, even as a 7th grader coming to summer workouts, he had seniors that were like,
Yeah, I got to see that. That was awesome.
it was super cool.
Really cool.
And I'm like, and I mean, we were down at MLC last weekend, and he went, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm gonna go sit by Connor, and I'm like, Connor who? And it was Connor Hilke.
Connor, college student? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, and so I mean, I went out of my way, I sent Penny a message, I'm like, hey, thank you for raising a good human, because not many college freshmen would be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's that
That's great.
freshman high schooler who comes to me, so, But yeah, no, it's a pretty cool bond that they're able to make.
Totally. So I guess I wanted to just share a few things of this. And this, so actually in like a week-ish, we're gonna be meeting with the freshman class to basically say, you know, hey, you've been at high school for a month, let's talk about it for a little bit. So some of this will be shared with them too. So one thing I guess I would ask you to try to do is just remember not only the conversation you've had here, which is great, but continue to remember to not only yourself to model this for your kids, but also encourage your kids to try to think a little bit differently when they see certain situations. And thinking differently starts with how we think that's different from the way that much of the world wants us to think. Second thing is to lean on other parents, whether they are here, whether they are parents of seniors and they've had 4 kids go through here already, whether they are the parents of a brand new student and it's the first time you've been a parent at St. Croix. Like, parents have been in your boat or they are currently in your boat. And there's a lot of people that they have leaned on, and honestly, like, so many people here love to be a person that can be helpful. And so maybe one of the best ways to transition for parents is to just be willing to say hello, and my kid's this age, like automatically the conversation will start, I remember when my kid was that age, they did this and they had that class, oh, my kid has that class, and it starts. Then also, this even helps from a teacher's perspective too. Like, I work here, so I better be an ambassador for our school. But there's definitely days where I'm not like thrilled to go to work because I get tired. But whenever, like, if I'm wearing a St. Croix shirt, which most of my clothing has St. Croix on it, so it's almost every day. Whenever I'm just out in around our community and people see a shirt and they say, oh, hey, you're from that school, like, it's a great little slap in the face for me sometimes to just constantly be an ambassador, because our school is not just about us and our school. Our school is about our faith and sharing that with the world. It even happened over the summer. I was in Walmart. We have a former student here who is trying to make an NBA roster. And so he's been in our gym constantly over the last couple of years. And he's been with the Timberwolves a little bit. He played with the Sacramento Kings in the summer. And he still comes here to do his workouts, like almost every day. And it's really awesome to see him interact with teachers, like with a smile on his face, like, hey, how's it going? Great to see you, all this stuff. I was in Walmart the other day with a St. Croix shirt on, and somebody was like, hey, that's where that kid who's trying to go to the NBA is from, right? It was a guy who had just happened to play a pickup game over here and saw him and thought he didn't even say anything about him as a player. He said, just a great guy. And that was a great way for us to just connect and say, oh, hello, drop by anytime. Love to just show you around if you want to, that type of thing. Like, people in the community love to be invited to stuff. And like I said at the very beginning, humans really want to be connected to other humans. And if they don't have that in their life right now, and we can be that for them, again, it's not just about us here at the school, that's about the greater kingdom. And that's really what it's all about. But those are pretty vague, so I wanted to share a couple more specific things. There's a ton of activities and events here, and students don't always know everything of what all they can get involved in, and since students don't always know, parents don't always know either. Obviously, we have our different activities, so we have different athletics things. We have a robotics team. Of course, music is a big part of things, but even aside from like regular band or regular choir or things like that, Mr. Fensky does a jazz band that's separate from everything else, just for people who want to do it. There's opportunities for students who play different instruments to play in chapel, whether that's a classical style instrument or a guitar, drums, keyboard, whatever type of instrument. We have multiple students that sing for different chapel services. It's really cool. There's theater opportunities, of course, every year. One thing that I didn't even put in there that is really strange for me, but is providing a great opportunity for some kids, is that we have both a drone racing team, and this year we have what's called an esports team, which, unbelievable that's a thing. But kids love it, and they're talking to our teachers about it today, and we want to try to find ways for every type of kid to be involved in something, because that's how they feel like they belong.
That
Right?
esports team killed my summer pleas to get one of Madden isn't going to portray it on the field.
I'm not sure if they're gonna I don't know what they'll do with it exactly, but it's cool. Global leadership's another one. We have a very unique setting here where we get to have students from all over the world. And so once students get to their sophomore year, they can apply to be on a global leadership team and be a mentor for a new international student. Incredible experience to develop friendships with students who are not that much different from you, but live 6,000 miles away. Just awesome to see those connections. Different career experiences with either alumni or with different events that we have, people coming in. Those things happen. New Friends was just kind of announced to our students earlier this week. New Friends is a way that we try to reach out to students or people with special needs in our area, whether they're high school age or older. About, I think, twice a month or so, they come in on a Sunday, and a bunch of our students hang out with all these people who just need love in their lives because they don't get a lot of it because of their different special needs. That's a really cool thing. If you talk to your kids about that and they didn't sign up, hey, maybe encourage them to sign up. Night to Shine is another one that's maybe a little bit more public. That's the prom that we put on every year for those people in our community with special needs. I think 2 years ago, the last time we had it, there were 250 guests, and 300 or so of our students are involved in some way. It's incredible. Different classroom presentations. We do try to encourage people that are in a certain, whether it's a line of work or have certain experiences to come in and do stuff in front of classes. We encourage our teachers to try to contact those people as well. And then finally, there's ways to connect with different organization and volunteering things with our mission advancement team. They'd love to get you plugged in some way. There's more. So one of my roles, like I said, is to be a guidance counselor. And I get to talk to kids about what they're thinking when they're done with high school. And I get to see a lot of different types of thinking that happen. I get to see some kids who say, me and my parents just talked about this yesterday, blah, 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 blah. I also get to talk with some kids who say, I have not talked with my mom or dad about this at all, and I don't really want to. So talking about it early is a good thing. Even if they answer I don't know, that's too early for me. At least you're showing that you're interested, and you're still keeping that connection with them. Because most of them don't know what they are going to do after they're done with high school. So to just have the question in front of them a few times is a good thing, because believe it or not, they're thinking about it. They are. We do course planning pretty early here. We do course selections in January for the next year. That comes really quick, and some kids aren't prepared for it. So again, that's another thing to kind of start talking a little bit hey, there's that class. Do you know anybody in that class? Is that something you might be interested in? And again, it's a way for you to stay involved and for them to feel that support from you.
Can you talk a little more about that, Drew? I felt my high school is a sophomore. I felt like last year, and it could be just because of the COVID year, that happened and I didn't even know it happened. And then he came home with, these are the classes I'm taking. I'm like, how does that? I didn't get a chance to have that pre-conversation about how does that fit in where you want to be long-term.
That's a great question, and it's not one that I know the answer to, because we have just made a little bit of adjustments of how we communicate those things for this year. So I can't really speak much to how it would have gone last year.
Okay.
You guys
I
have-
know it wouldn't have been a secret.
Sure,
So.
sure, yeah.
I don't know. Sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah, it is that transition between like, you're still getting information, but there's still a whole raft of information that you're not getting, and it just is what it is. But you guys have a really great, curriculum, handbook, if you will, online that has all the courses that are available for every single year. So, I mean, oddly enough, my child actually looked at it a year before he came here, so.
Whoa.
I think, so you can just grab that whenever you can online and bounce
Yep.
it off with your kid, so.
Yeah, mine is more like thinking about the progression.
Mhm.
Like you're in this math now, and to get to your end game, we've got some PSEO discussions going on, like how does that look and where do you have to be? And,
Sure.
you know, some of that requires some middle school planning and execution, more importantly, in my world. But, so, yeah, that was just and I maybe just need to make an appointment with somebody and have that discussion.
Well, that's a good thing just for us to know from your perspective. That may not be something that we've thought about as much as we should too. So that's another great reason to have you here and share those experiences. We should talk about that. In addition, one thing that we are really going to start this year that we haven't done all that much in the past is start doing different interest and personality inventories early in a student's time here. So with freshmen later on this year, we're going to go through a personality inventory thing with them. And the reason for it isn't just to see what type of person are you, but the reason is for them to see how does my personality start to maybe translate to what I'm gonna do when I'm not in school anymore. That doesn't mean decisions are made once they're freshmen, but it at least gets their brains cranking in that type of mode.
Out of the NSL isn't reality.
Well, that I will not. They'll figure that out sooner or later.
I think he's probably starting to.
I remember when I was in 5th grade, I wanted to first be a professional baseball player, and then when I gave up on that dream, I wanted to be a professional basketball player, and then after I gave up on that dream, I wanted to be a professional golfer. I figured it out eventually that I'm not that special. So most people.
Well, his plan B is O-line,
Yeah.
and his plan A is D-line.
Well, there you go.
Which is, okay.
That's okay. I just wanted to show you this real quick because that should go to a link. Let's try that again. Just wanted to show you this because everybody in our school has an account to this. Oops. Everybody in our school has an account to this thing called Naviance. Freshmen don't know it yet, but they do. Sophomores have been here, but they probably forgot. So we'll get them back into it. Juniors and seniors use it a lot. It's a way for them to get connected to different college things and career things, and we send lots of information to schools and all that sort of stuff. But what I was referring to is this set of different personality inventories, and then again, when they become sophomores, we go through different career, just brainstorming basically with them to help them start to think. So the personality inventory thing, I won't show you it necessarily, but it says it helps you identify your personality type by asking you to choose scenarios that best represent how you behave in real life. And again, it draws connections between, do you want to open the door for my kids?
Open the door, Phelan. Phelan, open the door for the girls. Dad.
They've been hanging out at soccer practice for a while, so. So there's that, and then again, later, this one I wanted to show you, that can be really good just conversation points between whether it's me or other guidance counselors or our advisors and the students is this, which I'm just gonna say I retake it. Yeah, I know. So, it's this simple, where it just says, do you like to learn how things grow and stay alive, like or dislike? And it's things like that, 100 of them, that you just have to click yes or no. And it at least, again, gets your brain thinking and gets a conversation point started with us. So, again, freshmen do kind of a personality thing. Sophomores, we do a little bit more like this. And again, we kind of send a little update about what we did, and then you can talk about those things at home as well. All right, going back.
PSEO starts junior year, correct?
Typically, yes. If you're interested in PSEO, there is also a PSEO section on our website with a whole like brochure about it. I would encourage you to read through that because there are some pretty specific requirements for how to get into that stuff.
And a session through Crusader.
Yeah. I
There you
think
go,
so.
that's right. That's right.
Is it mostly through Inver, or does it vary,
Students get to choose.
can go where?
I would say a majority go through Inver Hills, but there are lots of options that are not even that local. Bethany Lutheran, a lot of students do that one too. This I thought I would just share with you as kind of a last thing. This is something that a parent actually shared last year that I did actually literally write down word for word. This is from a previous parent who said, you want to be involved and you want your kids to be involved, go to things. Whether your kids are in them or not is what this parent said. And I know that things get busy and, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening. You can't go to everything. But she said one of the best things that she did for her and her husband and then for her kids was to go to things that her kids were not even at. Just to meet different types of people. And then she said, the more you support your school and all the kids, the more supported your kid will feel. I thought, wow, that's pretty profound right there. And then she even said more. She said, the more you support your school and all the kids, the more connected you'll feel at the school. That does not by any means mean that the entire burden of being connected at a school lies on you. It doesn't. It lies on us as a school as well to make sure that we get you connected. But I thought this was great. For your kids to be connected, they go. And like I said at the beginning, they want you to be there. Standing next to them, maybe not anymore. But for them to, at times, just out of the corner of their eye, see, oh yeah, my mom's over there in the bleachers. I'm still good right here. But that's all right if she's over there. I can remember as a senior in high school, whether it was playing a sport or at a concert or something like that, I loved seeing my parents there. I did. I never told my parents that when I was in high school, but I know that I did. And so I think that's a huge thing for us to remember as we move forward. Finally, I'm advertising for Anna right here. One cool thing that is coming in about a month is something called New Parent Tailgate. Is that the actual name of it?
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
Super
Official.
New Parent Tailgate. There you go. So there's a home football game Friday, October 15th. And there's a New Parent Tailgate thing at 5:30. And I don't know. It'd be pretty cool to have a bunch of people there.
Like, for a person that's never tailgated before, like, do you bring your own food and cook out of the back of your trunk?
We'll provide everything. I'll send out some more details and.
Okay,
Tailgate sounds cooler than
Pretty
social.
soon.
gotcha.
And it's before a football game.
And
So.
it's before.
Yeah.
Yes.
I honestly don't even know if it'll be out in the parking lot or if it'll be on grass, but
details.
it'll be nearby to a sporting event.
There you go. So, with that, that's the material that I have for you. You've already asked some pretty phenomenal questions and had some fantastic discussion. If you have more, awesome.
One of the things I'm trying to navigate with a capable but unmotivated student is how do we get you to your end game? You know, if the end game is to do as little as possible to get out of high school and then start this great collegiate career, it's not very likely to happen. And so how do, as we're navigating honors classes versus AP classes versus PSEO classes, which are all within the realm of possibility, my student is always going to choose the easiest path. And it will prohibit him maybe from getting to an end game. And I don't know how to have those discussions because I don't even know how that happens here.
When they're in younger grades, we try to just share information with them. Typically in either larger group settings, or what sophomores will start to be doing in the next couple weeks is some of that inventory stuff in smaller groups,
Okay.
so that they can hopefully have a little bit more discussion with it. Once they get into their older years, juniors and seniors, we try to make it as personal as possible. So individually meeting with each student, hopefully multiple times throughout the year, while still sharing information with large groups. Because some stuff you just have to share, like housekeeping things you have to do.
Right.
But
When you say meeting multiple times individually, is that like somebody like a guidance counselor or
Mhm.
your advisory advisor?
yeah, so advisors are primarily academic in nature,
Just making
where they're
sure you're
checking
keeping
up on stuff.
on stuff.
You know what courses you are having. Once we get later in the year, you know what courses you're looking at taking, how our class is going, and they do make little notes about how that's all taking place. As far as, now there are some class advisors who definitely talk about future stuff with students. My role is to have more specific, direct conversations with students about less academic, although we still talk about academic things, but now more, how is your thought process going? How do you think about it? Do you think about it at all? And how can we help you as
So
you
you're the person
navigate?
that you're referencing a couple of times a year, junior and senior.
Yeah, so I'm one, and then we also have a guidance counselor who the district supplies to us that does it as well. Yeah. To go back to yours, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is to continue to have the conversation. About 2 years ago, I finished a school counseling master's degree, and one of the most simple yet powerful things that I learned in just interacting, doing different session things with real students or fake students in like a clinical setting was how to make sure that the person you're talking to doesn't feel interrogated. And going through like different types of questions, or really not even asking questions, but prompting with other verbiage helps a ton. Doesn't mean that the student's always going to respond in the way that you're hoping they do, but you know, because I try to ask students all the time as they sit with me, like, tell me your thought process. And sometimes they don't share anything, and then you're just like, okay, what's the other angle, right? But really, I guess I would also say maybe the most success I've had with various students is to just start everything with just a conversation of how they're doing. And often it just kind of starts to flow naturally from that, because they feel like it's a safe environment for them to share different things. That doesn't really answer your question,
Yeah, no, it's okay.
but
It's okay.
I don't know. Maybe we can talk later and see if we can
Yeah,
get
but I
more
have a
specifics
question.
with that too.
Like, I have to kind of take them, especially like this going into the freshman year. I was like, we're gonna put you in engineering because I know as much from his academic life up until high school, like kind of the way his brain turns, and I know the NFL is not a reality, and something like engineering or something along those lines is more STEM based for his thought process. And it's like these two freshman, sophomore years, like those are the years that you gotta try as much as you can so that you can kind of hone in on things as you continue to progress. And he has a study hall, like I wasn't like, no, you're gonna do AP all the things, but I didn't push him towards the AP stuff either for the sake of, it's not so much setting him up for for struggle and failure, but it's like especially this first navigation year of what is high school and how is it different from my little pond of Crown of Life to big pond of St. Croix. And so far he's doing really well. Will this hold up? I mean, and it's tough too with football season and everything else. It's like they're gone 12, 14 hours a day and then trying to have those conversations of what's next. But
Yeah, I guess, and maybe it was because it was a COVID year, I didn't even feel like I was aware of it.
Yeah.
It was all of this stuff happening and I got a schedule and I'm like, wait a minute, how does this line up with? So, you know, again, I'm.
Probably a combination of weird year and we should make sure that we're doing our process in the best way. And
Yeah, and I have a student who's, you know,
communication.
right, it's not intentional.
Yeah.
But I've just got a sophomore, I'm still bringing football pants to because he doesn't, you know,
Yeah.
he's thinking about different things. And that's why I'm here. I wanna learn how to better help him in this new territory.
I like your question about positioning them now for what their end goal is gonna be. We kind of had that conversation. My decisions for her as a freshman, how is that gonna impact, am I gonna be limiting her when she gets to be a senior and beyond, especially when we're not clear on what the end goal is right now. You brought up, advisors and the Naviance guidance counseling. I know that the advisors give approval on the course selection when the kids are going through that process. Are they in communication with the guidance counseling so that they understand what the target is? Or is that up to us as parents to be communicating? Should we be seeking out the advisor and having those conversations?
We do, from our guidance department perspective, we do not have individual conversations with every advisor about every student. But we do, our guidance department, our director does basically sign off on various things, and department heads look at what decisions are being made and do kind of like sign off on those things too, to make sure everything's going the way it should. Where we probably lack is communicating that with parents and making sure that they're involved too. I don't know how that's happening.
The advisor's primary role is to make sure that they're meeting their credit criteria, right?
That is the primary role, yes. Yes.
for me too, I mean, that's part of why, like, I did opt in for the high school daily announcements, just so that I know what is coming his way. Like, yeah, it comes to my email and I don't, like.
6 a.m. every morning.
I know.
Hey, Bible verse.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in there that's
No, you do a great
useful.
job of communicating, and if I came across as suggesting anything different, that wasn't my intent. I'm just trying as a parent to get my head around, like, okay, so now we're signed up for sophomore classes, let's not let that happen
Yeah.
junior year.
Sure.
Especially if you think you're gonna do PSEO or something else, cause I know there's a bunch of high school requirements that need to be
Yep.
met.
And don't worry, there's nothing wrong with offering suggestions. That's an okay thing.
I don't know if that was a suggestion, I'm just trying to, again, just trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're doing that here with us, that we can hear that and think about those things at the same time. Really appreciate it. We should probably call it.
It's great. Love it.
So I guess I just want to thank you for coming. Awesome to have you here and participating. You are welcome to either take your paperclip, or I can grab it from you and throw it in the garbage. Or if you didn't bend it or do anything with it, I'll put it back in our paperclip stash. But if you want to just leave it there too, I'll come and grab it in a second.
Just a real quick plug for our next session. It's they're all on Tuesdays here, same time, and next one's October 5th about academic success here at SCLA. So it might be a time for some of those questions. Dr. Rachi is going to be leading that one, and then he's going to be doing the PSEO one in February as well. So just check out, go on to, it's the website /Crusader Connections. Check out the schedule. And lots of good stuff.
Great.
Well, let me know of any questions.